All right, well, Tepeyac Community Health Center is making access to care easier than ever. Okay, so we all know physical health, it's super important, right? But we cannot function without the health of our mental state, especially right now. For some reason, I feel like it is more important than ever. Well, today we're getting some tips on battling and overcoming grief with Behavioral Health and Wellness Director Ana Lararroca. Ana, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Claudia. It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to talk about this because just with the events of the last 2 weeks, a lot of people are grieving. I would like for you to first explain, how do you define grief?
Absolutely. Grief is happening throughout the world and in our country right now for everybody, I find. And the way I think of grief is when we experience a loss. It's the emotions that come up when we lose somebody or we lose something, or when we see others losing people. So this can be also the loss of a relationship. It can be a divorce. It can be a miscarriage. It can be fertility issues. With the pandemic, we've seen moving to remote work and remote school, remote education. And so there can be those feelings of grief that show up in those situations as well.
Absolutely, and it could be in so many different ways that you just listed. I'm one of those people that a lot of times I'll bottle it in. I don't have time right now because I've got kids, and we all have a life that just keeps going and going and going. But we have to learn how to manage that grief because that all ties in to your overall health. Can you explain that?
Exactly. We tend to grieve in isolation. And the pandemic has made that even more so.
Yes, you're right.
Where we might not be able to celebrate the loss of, or to celebrate the life of somebody that we've lost in the same way. So it's a double loss in some ways. And so when we tend to isolate, we might also experience more anxiety. We might have some appetite changes. We might have some insomnia. And so all those physical symptoms have a direct connection to our health, to our physical health, and also to other areas of health. There's even research coming out that our mental health can affect our dental hygiene.
It just affects so many things, and I had not heard about the dental hygiene, but that's so important. Okay, how does Tepeyac Community Health Center help patients go through that grieving process?
When a patient comes to Tepeyac, we have behavioral health therapists that work alongside the medical providers. So if somebody comes in and they're sharing that they're having headaches or any type of stress, they also see a behavioral health therapist. And at that point, we're able to talk to the patients about what's going on, and we are hearing so many stories of grief. Again, the grief of loved ones that we are seeing a lot, but also grief in other ways. And so the behavioral health therapists are able to support patients in that moment and talk to them about ways that can help heal. So it might be something, we have a few props here of what helps them create a memory or a place for that loved one. So it might be creating a little altar. If somebody's going through a big change in their life, it might be using aromatherapy. I have some agua de Florida here, smudging the space. It might be a yoga practice and connecting with prayer. It might be taking some flowers to where a loved one might be. And so really, as the behavioral health therapist, we get creative in really getting to know the patient's belief system, their spirituality, and seeing what would be the best thing for them in their own healing.
I love that. And the candle is something that I grew up with first my grandmother. My mom lights a candle when she is asking for something or when she wants to be hopeful or faithful. That is what she still does to this day. For family and friends, and I know you kind of touched on this, but for family, maybe friends who are seeing somebody go through that grief process, what advice do you have?
Everybody grieves differently, and so being able to create the space for somebody to share what's going on with them emotionally is important. Like you said, some people might feel numb or anxious or might want to put it aside. So being able to ask directly how somebody is doing to create that safe space where we can talk openly about grief.
Yes, and I know that there's a huge difference with the adolescents because they have a mind of their own. I say this because I'm a mother to a 13-year-old and I have a 6-year-old, but what advice do you have for dealing with adolescents who are also going through the grieving stage of something?
Yeah, I think back to when I was a teenager and I didn't understand grief. I didn't know what it was. And so even being able to name it for teenagers, for adolescents, that it is a normal process, what they might be experiencing. They might have a number of emotions, and so also creating spaces where we can talk openly about grief, about loss, especially with the changes with the pandemic, of moving to remote learning, with everything that's happening on the news, being able to ask adolescents directly what feelings are coming up with them, what experiences are coming up, and being able to also just talk directly about it is what we would recommend.
Yes, well, thank you so much for that advice. Ana, thank you for coming in this morning. I want to give everyone some information on how to get a hold of you and your team. And I know we talked earlier that se habla español for people who only speak Spanish here in Denver. So again, thank you for coming in this morning. Great info. See, I already feel better.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Here is how you get a hold of them. Scan the QR code on your screen to learn more, find a provider, and to be connected to great resources about Tepeyac Community Health Center. And you can also find them at tepeyachhealth.org or give them a call at 303-458-5302. Se habla español y puede encontrar toda la información sobre la clínica Tepeyac en el sitio tepeyachhealth.org.